Hello everyone. Welcome to the third day of the Manila PTG today. We have a good agenda to cover and some good topics to go over today. Yesterday and the Monday, we did have the sessions and they are already uploaded to the YouTube channel, Manila YouTube channel. So if you didn't have time to be at those calls because you had conflicted meetings, please feel free to watch those videos on YouTube. The entire content is already recorded there, and we also have the links for the times for the specific topics on the videos. So yeah, and today we are going to start with something that has been a multi-cycle effort for us until this moment. And we had awesome progress on this, and we still have some things to share and some things to work on. So yeah, first up today is Mari with OpenStack Client updates. So Mari, first yours.
Thanks, Carlos. Hi, everyone. Okay, so Carlos, would you mind opening the other Etherpad? I linked to the main one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool, thanks. Okay, so I wrote up some notes. Last time we discussed that we wanted to get to feature parity with the OpenStack client in Yoga cycle. It didn't really happen, and I know I wasn't as much around as I would like to, so it feels weird to summarize this cycle for you, but we still did get some patches in regarding quotas, share group type, share network subnets, and some smaller fixes. So thanks to everyone who contributed and helped out. And so for this cycle, we're going to try again. Maybe we can wrap this OpenStack client support finally. And we did submit the project to Outreachy, Carlos and I. We're hoping to get an intern. And right now it's the contribution period. So the applicants are trying to set up their Devstacks and working on bug fixes. So let's see how this goes. It would be really cool if we get an intern. I think we'll find out May 20, right? And the internship starts when? May 30, was it? Oh, well, anyways, we have some time. So yeah, so let's all look out for outreach applicants who are asking for help in case Carlos and I miss them in the channels. So what do we need to do to get this thing wrapped up? We have first on the list, microversion auto negotiation. I think Gotham explained this last cycle. I also just now created a task to our task board for this. And so I think basically we just need someone to take this on. So I'll leave this open-ended question here. If anyone feels like this is something they want to tackle, please take it and we'll help, of course. And then for commands that we need to implement or some command options, we have soft delete restore. I think this would be perfect one for the outreach intern if we get one. If not, I'll take it or someone else takes it. So I think this is not very complicated patch. It should be like reasonable size. So we do have two, I'd say, problematic patches. They have been around for quite a long time. I see good effort on reviewers' part. Everybody's trying to help, but somehow these are not moving forward. So these are share servers and share group snapshots. They're like fairly big branch patches. So honestly, I don't know what else we can do aside from keep reviewing and trying to suggest fixes and how to move this forward. I don't know if anyone has ideas. I'm all ears.
Yeah, I think that there has been some good progress on this already, and most of the code, like which is the hardest part at the moment, was already implemented. So the things we have for those changes now are basically like some things we found during the reviews and some possible issues, like some issues that we identified that could be like bugs or something like that, or enhancements to the code. So yeah,
Mhm.
one idea would be like to try to help the owners of these changes to get those changes in, and then like we have reviewers subscribed to that, and usually those reviewers are around. But if we could like lose one of those reviewers to try to help and also like submit changes to that, because I mean it's the hardest part of the job for those changes already done, and we would only need to get like a few more things that reviewers asked, and I think we are not that far of merging those changes. So I think
Okay.
we could discuss between yourselves, and each one of us like try to help with submitting patches to the changes that already are there. I think that wouldn't take much time from us, and it would help us to move on with those changes, and finally get like closer and closer to the feature party we have been talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's an idea. Yeah. So you're suggesting we add the co-authors, basically,
Yeah,
to yeah. Okay. I think that's probably a good idea. So let's keep our eyes on those. Then we have security services. This is my patch. It's ready for reviews. I didn't add reviewers before. I knew everybody was busy with yoga stuff. So, and this was not gonna be in yoga anyway. So, yeah. Anyone, please, you wanna review? Please do. It's ready, waiting for you. Then we have share migration, and this is that Namrata is working on right now. She already has the first patch. This patch contains one command, and I guess we'll see how big the patches are going to be, if either one patch for each command or something like that. But yeah, I think I'm reviewing it. I added Carlos. I had some questions about it. So basically, the commands are share migration start, was it right? And the thing is that it has so many flag options. Some are required, some are not, but they are either true or false, right? So in that case, we generally use the action store true option. So the user can say add a flag, enable metadata or whatever. I don't know the exact one right now. But if not defined, then it defaults to false, right? But in this case, if this is required, then I guess we can't just say default is false. Or can we? Yeah, that's I posted my question on the change. So yeah, I'm just curious what everybody else thinks of it. Right now, I think what Namrata did is what I probably would have done to begin with, to just add them as true false choice options. So you have to write true or false to the flag, which is not that user friendly, but at the same time, it's cohesive for the whole command. So the optional and required ones act the same way. Otherwise, it's one is a flag, one is you have to also add true or false. In the end, it could be like confusing. So I wanted to bring this up because
And is this
I'm
the,
just,
sorry, is this the
yeah, go
same
ahead.
as the Manila client right now? Don't we have the same
Uh,
problem with the Manila client shell?
I think so. Honestly, I didn't check. Sorry, but I assume so. Yes.
Yeah, we in the Manila client we are forced to check to say like preserve snapshots if you want true or false. Though I think there are three or four. It's non-disruptive, writable, preserve snapshots, and preserve metadata if I recall correctly. And for all of those, you need to set true or false. It's what we have been doing. I've issued those comments like a lot while trying some migrations, so I kind of remember some things. But yeah, it's we always force those to be set. And yeah, I, I honestly I don't know if it's the best behavior, if we should keep the same thing we did in the past, which was basically because when we have the weight options, for example, we usually only say like dash dash weight, and then it's gonna wait because the true action is when we specify the flag, and when it isn't specified, we only like ignore and take that as a false. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking, because I mean, from like general point of view, how all the commands act more cohesive, it would make sense if we follow through as we do now for weight or force or flags like that. But yeah, I don't know if
yeah,
Yeah. So
I don't know.
right now, the shell has the behavior that you're implementing, which is you specify the flag and you say true or false, like you type it out. So
Yeah,
it's not really one of those Boolean store true options.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like thinking about the other side on the current behavior, it's I think it is like this because that way we could ensure that administrators would specify specifically what they want from their migration. So if they want migration to be non-disruptive, sure. But yeah, I don't know how much that changes in terms of usability if we do not force them to just like write if they want true or false, or if they don't specify. It's a behavior change, and I think the best option is to try to look at the other services. For example, uh, Nova also has a migration feature, right? So I think that could be an option
mm.
for us to check their parameters and see what they expect to be set.
Okay, yeah,
I think I remember a similar discussion. So if you were to use just options with store true or store false, you would have to introduce two options for each of these options, two command line options. So one that negates it versus one that is positive, saying preserve metadata, don't preserve metadata sorts. So you got to then put them in a command group such that one of these options is always specified within each group. So that's another way of doing that, but I feel it's going to be too cumbersome. But that's a design choice we make, I guess.
yeah. So I think we can look at some examples and think about it. And I posted my question on this patch, so I think maybe we can discuss it there so it's in context, and we can share examples.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll move on right now. So, okay, next one is share server migration. That was actually missing from the task board. I added it. And I guess this is new since the spec was written. We didn't have a spec for it. So I added, well, most of them were like, basic create, delete, or no, cancel. Okay, yeah. But there was one Manila share server migration check, which I guess it checks if this migration is gonna work. Or I'm just curious. I started thinking, how does that implement to the OpenStack client? We have with the command options we have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's what it does. So it just does a dry run sorts of whatever you plan to do, and tells you whether the migration is possible or not. And the dry run has two ways, I think. One is to initiate a check. It is also a asynchronous thing. So we don't really, I mean, we could implement like a wait so that we can get the response from this check API itself. And there's another way to bounce the check again. So in case there's you have a check response and you want to redo the check, there's a restart mechanism. So I did this for shared networks with OSC, and I'm just linking it right there. So it is, we can implement it as part of the update or migration thing itself. For share networks, it was when updating a share network, you could issue a check command. And so we're doing that just as part of the update. So you could there's a option that just says check only instead of doing the update.
Okay, cool. So we have examples. Great, thank you. I just wrote the task up and I got confused. So okay, awesome. So I guess this patch could also be for the intern if we got one. If not, one of us can take it. Yep. I can certainly, if necessary. And then we have the functional test that until now was just one note. Okay, we need functional tests. But now what I did, I added the task to the board, and now it became really scary. I don't know, Carlos, if you want to open the task board. I went through all the command groups and I added tasks to the board. I tagged them with Zorilla and Hackathon. And there's a lot to do. So if we want to get this done, I think we really need the hackathon, because I don't see other way that we can pull it off, honestly. So you can all get scared now if you look at that list.
Yeah, it's a large list. Thanks for putting this together. Yeah. I think some of these,
the red ones are I blocked them because the commands have not been implemented yet. So if we have the commands implemented, I'll unblock those tasks. Just so we have like a visual what can we grab. And if everybody agrees to do a hackathon on this, I was thinking before maybe it would be a good idea if we get a few of those patches done. So we have some examples. I think when we did the OSC hackathon, the very good thing was that we had like quite a bit done. We had like so many code examples. So people who joined and didn't like work with these commands before, they had so much code to see and examples to look at. So I think we would really benefit if we had like a few of those patches in. So we have some cases discussed or whatever, because I look at those tasks and I thought, okay, how would I do this? And I already had so many questions in my mind. So I think if we do a few of those and we get reviewers' help and stuff, it's already like it's gonna help. I did start the snapshots patch. I did one test for the CRUD commands, and it's still a work in progress. But if anybody wants to look and scream that I'm doing all of it wrong, please do. So I'll change tactics, because I honestly don't know how this should be done. I'm just trying to kind of make sense of it. So yeah, if someone has experience with these functional tests, it would be awesome if you could do one patch or something like that, just so we have code examples. Yeah, so
and you have them for shares already, right?
Shares kind of will only, I think, create, delete, show, set, maybe. I don't, just a few. Basically what I did during my internship, I did the base class and yeah, just a few tests. So but I think even those tests are not handling all the options and flags and whatnot. So that should be also reviewed. I added task for that to review and add to the share code commands. But yeah, there's the base is there, but we need to build on that, and we need more examples. So
yeah. Yes, I agree.
yeah.
And we should have a hackathon for that during this cycle.
From what I hear, though, you want to see enough number of examples before the hackathon, so it's helpful. Correct? Or do you think we already have some, so we could schedule the hackathon soon?
I mean, I guess either way works. I think that if we could get a few examples in in the near future and do a hackathon after that would be great. But if we do hackathon right away, it gives us more time to follow up and stuff. So this is just like my idea, because when I started looking at those commands and I started thinking, okay, how would I write those tests? I crashed my brain for a second. So I think I would need those examples. So during a hackathon, I could be more effective and do faster. But I think either way works. What do you all think? I don't know. If we just do a hackathon, I think that's already like a major win. So
yeah,
either way.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree too. Having a few examples would be good. And I mean, we briefly chatted about having a hackathon earlier in the cycle, so we would have more time to get the reviews done over the cycle and to get the changes in. So yeah, I think we can have this. I think at the end of this month, and then we can have until we have the hackathon, like some days, so we can write some functional tests and get some reviews, so we can shape better it, and then we will have even more examples for the contributors to take a look at and to base their implementations on it. So yeah, I think it's a good idea, and we can try to do that in the way. I don't know if you agree with the timeline for the hackathon, or if you think it's too early in the cycle and we should make it like not too early, but not right at the end of the cycle too. Yeah, so opinions for that are always welcome.
For me, the end of the month sounds fine. Yeah, I don't have really any objections to any timeline.
So which is the end of set 1?
Sorry?
I'm just checking the schedule, which is the end of set 1, the first
Almost
marathon.
mid-May, May 16th through 20th. So I think May 19th or something is Thursday that week.
Yeah,
Okay.
that works.
Yeah, we can target like for set 1 or set 2. So we usually for the third milestone, we are kind of trying to get a lot of things in, and people is just to buried with a lot of work. So if we can, it would be nice to have time to actually enjoy the hackathon as we did for the OpenStack Client in the last cycle. So yeah, I wouldn't defer it to set 3, for instance.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, definitely before Z1. And if we were to look for examples, I think I had a couple of folks that wanted to help with Python Manila client, and I would just turn them towards this task maybe, and try to see if they can help add some testing before the hackathon, so we have more examples.
Yeah, cool.
Sounds great.
I guess yeah. If we set the date, then yeah, if we can do something before that, great. If not, then it still will be great. So
Yeah.
it's okay.
Great.
Okay, so I think next up was deprecating the Manila shell. I just copied our notes over from last PTG. So I guess the timeline we just put, I just added that we push everything we planned for yoga to Zed and so on. So yeah, I guess that's all from me. Any thoughts, questions, concerns?
We mostly followed the guidelines that we had over there, saying that we will not be adding any new features into the Manila client shell. Mostly, and I say that because one of the major features we only implemented it in the Manila client shell, and that was just happenstance in the sense that the feature was ready even before we made the decision. So and we couldn't backfill. So let's probably reinstate the rule and discuss again. I mean, we are in general agreement that there are no features. I mean, there is no need to add any new features to Manila client anymore. I mean, it's a lost effort in the sense we are actively trying to deprecate it and trying to put all our efforts into making the OSC client complete. So I guess that's something we need to emphasize again in terms of review, in case you see anybody trying to work on the Manila client and not OSC, remind them that's the wrong direction for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go back to what the list that Mari has here and try and add some owners. I don't know if you've done this in the past. If you've done this in the past, I can just get those owners back and we can probably add some deadlines instead. I'm talking about the share servers, share group snapshots, security services patches that are ready for review. Is it going to be helpful if we can have, like you guys discussed, co-authors and the people that will be responsible to get those things merged?
Yes, I think so.
Awesome. So we can go down the list. Any volunteers? Archana is still around to update the share service patch, but I guess we need some help reviewing it deeply and getting it to a state of getting merged.
Yeah.
So anyone willing to co-author and buddy up with Archana here?
I can help with that.
Okay. And I will let folks sign up while we discuss the other ones for in terms of the reviewers and share group snapshots.
I could go after that. I can reach out to Archana and discuss it.
Awesome. Awesome. And security services?
I think that just needs reviewers for now.
Okay.
Yeah, please sign me up for review. This I can already admit myself here.
All right, I will do. And I'm signing up for reviewing these 3 patches. And so we can do like a check again in the next Manila meeting, IRC meeting, and see where we are with all of these patches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a conflicting meeting on that time.
Oh, I
That's
see.
very bad. It's funny because I don't have many meetings and I have a conflicting meeting in that time. So I might be able to catch the end of it, but then it's also my dog's dinner time, so it's a tricky time for me. But I'll do definitely. If you have any questions for me, you can ping me and I'll just go through it after and come back to you. I will get the notification. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And Namrata, is there anything that you need for the share migration patch?
No, usually Mari helps me with that. This was the first patch, so she helped me a lot in that. So, I don't need any other help right now, but if I will be needing, I'll ask in the channel.
Awesome. Thank you. So I can, I can picture this is actually going to spawn out into multiple patches. So we can talk about this again. And if you need anything.
Is it okay if I write a per patch per command? Is it okay or is it not? Like, should be?
Oh, no, no problem at all. You can definitely do it per command.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Mari, for the efforts on the Manila client, and also for bringing this up to discussion and for gathering the list of the functional tests too. And thank you to the reviewers and everybody that has been contributing to the Manila client, the OpenStack client, so we can have it, they have the feature parity we always talked about there. We are really close, and let's push to this cycle so we can have the parity we have been talking about. Cool. Something else you would like to add, folks, to the discussion, or any question to be asked?
Nope, I guess the hackathon date, and we should probably discuss that offline and finalize something in the next week.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. All right, so in the schedule, we have a short break. We are like 4 minutes over the scheduled time, which is all right. So let's catch like a 6-minute break, and then we can get back to the next topic, which is gonna be high available NFS ganesha. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Let's get back to our discussion items now. The next one is highly available NFS ganesha. So Victoria, Gautam, Francesco, for yours.
All right, thanks, Carlos. Okay, I will take the lead on discussion, but Gautam, Francesco, please feel free to interrupt me if you want to add something, or I don't know, correct me with something or anything. So for this discussion, we created an etherpad that you can access in the main Sorilla planning etherpad. I don't know, Carlos, if you can click on it. Thank you so much. All right, so I just wanted to do a quick summary of why we are doing this. This is a discussion that if you joined last PTG, we already started having. Initially, we were discussing this but our knowledge of what it was needed and the different changes we need to do in the driver was not yet clear. Nowadays, we have been working on this for quite some time, and we have collaborated with the Ceph community in order to add different features on their side that actually allows us to implement these driver modifications. So I link to the previous discussion we have in last PTG is linked on this etherpad. So if you're curious, you can access it from there. Summary, why we want to add this. Basically, this tool, which is ADM, provides a fully featured, robust, and well-maintained installer management layer for Ceph clusters, but also for NFS ganesha. Currently, the way we offer the solution in Manila is that basically the operator has to deploy ganesha on their own and maintain it on their own. And in this case, if we delegate this job to Ceph ADM, it's for many reasons better for us than actually keeping our configurations and tweaks as needed in order to have this driver working. Deploying an ingress service. This is an option that allows that provides us a Ceph ADM, allows us to have high availability For the NFS gateways, we can have load distribution across different gateways. Also failover between hosts if there is a host failure, and well, a stable virtual IP that can be used to access the NFS server. For this work, we have a couple of dependencies. Perhaps the one that we have been working more actively lately is the change that we need on Devstack-plugin-ceph. This is required for CI. And this work enables the development and testing flow for the driver itself. This has been more work than we expected because it not only affects vanilla, but also all the other services are using Ceph, such as Nova, Cinder, Glance, and I think Swift as well. Coordinating with the different services and trying to make this easy for us to make this change, it has been quite some work. But there is a change already for review, and you have the link in the etapad if you want to take a look. We are going to have a discussion about this specific topic later today, so yeah, we can continue to talk about this in a bit. But let's get back to Manila itself in the code base. So in our case, we will need to work on refactoring the CFFS NFS driver. So for the C cycle, we plan to do this change by including a new configuration option to detect whether to use the user wants to use FADM or not. This is I don't know if it's the best solution. Actually, I want to get your feedback on this, but the only way for the driver itself to know if the user has used FADM to deploy Ceph and Ganesha is basically just having a toggle, so we can get that option, and later on a next cycle, if we want to deprecate this, we can do it easily. Also, we will need to add a new NFS protocol helper. Currently, we have the way we implemented these drivers is that basically we have the main driver implementation that use different helpers depending if we are using CFFS native or CFFS with NFS. And in the case of Ganesha, since we are using the implementation in the Ganesha driver, we are using that for Ceph and for Cluster. We also have some helpers that we need to modify. But in our case, the idea is to add a new protocol helper, and then users can pick whether to use the current one, which hopefully at some point we're going to call it the legacy one, or the new one, let's say the NFS protocol helper 2. Okay, and after the C cycle, this is something we will need to discuss as well. Try to understand when it would be safe to mark for deprecation both this configuration I'm mentioning and the NFS protocol helper. Gotham, I see you added a couple of notes. I think it's Gotham about the ensure shares implementation. You want to cover that part?
Yeah, sure. So part of the migration here is because the export creation it was happening as part of, with the help of dbus. I mean, is happening right now with the help of dbus when you're using the Manila NFS CFFS NFS driver. There is no other way that Manila is interacting with Ganesha at the moment. But when we do this work, we are not planning to use dbus. We're planning to use NFS APIs from the Ceph manager. And so part of that, it would be the exports that are getting created via dbus look a little different from the exports that are getting created via the Ceph manager interface, which, as you can imagine, will change the behavior even for end users, right? So the export locations are all recorded right now in the Manila database. All of them will need to be updated with whatever the exports are when we switch over from using dbus to the Ceph manager. So doing so right now, the way exports work with the NFS Ganesha is exports are created only when access rules exist. So when you're creating an access rule, is when we interact with the Ganesha server, set up whatever client access is there, and like post it to Ganesha via the dbus API. And we'd be doing something very similar with the Ceph Manager NFS exports as well. So so in order to do a switchover, one way of doing that would be using this ensure shares mechanism. This FS driver does not use this so far. It uses the older ensure share workflow, and with ensure share, the idea is that every time the share manager is restarted, we kick off a bunch of ensure shares to whatever the shares are exported to that particular host. So this is a good opportunity for us to do some cleanup over there as well, because part of that effort today is wasteful, because we really don't need to ensure the shares every single time a restart happens, but we're doing that right now. But with the way we will implement ensure shares is we will tie that up with these configuration options that are changing, and you can imagine it's got to do with the NFS export IP that we currently configure in Manila. If that changes, and if we are moving over to this new protocol helper that Victoria is coding up, we take a combination of that, and we decide, okay, so this is time for us to play back all of the existing exports to this to Ganesha, and we do that irrespective of the fact whether we realize whether we're going from dbus to Ceph Manager. So we're kind of decoupling that recovery bit. And as part of that recovery, we are going to do the idempotent CephFS creation. That's still going to happen, just like it was happening with the NFS export, with the CephFS subvolume create. And the new thing here, though, is we'll also be deriving the access rules for that exist on Manila, and play that back to the Ceph cluster. And in this case, the Ceph Atom deployed Ganesha will get these access rules as part of the NFS API rather than the dbus command. So we'll be able to do a switch over if that's what the intent of this configuration change is. And this will also help if in case tomorrow the Ceph Atom deployed Ganesha is changing IPs, for instance, and so on. So we'll always try to replay exports every time an IP change is detected. So that's the basis of this. Right now, Manila does not package access rules as part of the ensure shares mechanism. So that'll be one of the proposed changes. And it's helpful to Manila to do this, because we kind of thought we had to do this for the LVM driver and the generic driver when we were trying to revamp those drivers and try to give them a way where beyond, I mean, for example, with the generic driver, we wanted to add an API and a Manila agent in the NFS servers that we are creating. And if that's a pretty significant change to the driver, and we won't be using export FS as we are doing currently. So if we were to make such a transition, we would have to play back all of those export rules, which are the Manila access rules. Yeah, so that's the idea here. And we have a WIP patch that Ben had started a while ago, so we'll be dusting that up. And that's the core change, and the CephFS driver will implement something very similar to what the LVM driver and the NetApp driver today are doing with ensure shares.
All right. I don't know if there are comments or questions or anything that you want to bring up now, or if we should just simply jump to the challenges section, and we can start the discussion there.
Hey, yeah, I have a question, but it mostly for the challenges questions, because I think this change within the driver, it's related to the migration process, regardless if you have an existing Ganesha already deployed there and you want to migrate to a new Ganesha instance, right?
Yes, that's what the ensure shares thing is supposed to do.
Yeah, because as we can see in the challenges part, in theory, I can imagine a scenario where Triple O or any other deployer using Ceph ADM behind the scenes can deploy one or more Ganesha instances, put an ingress on top of them, and make them accessible from Manila, basically. So part of the migration process will be adopting this new virtual IP as the new entry point for clients, right? And here is where ensure shares probably needs to play a role.
Yep, exactly. So the assumption here is that when you're making any change like this, your export IPs are changing. Or like Victoria is adding, she's adding a new NFS protocol helper class. So I don't know yet how we are going to expose that as a configuration option. Maybe we'll tie up both the export IP change as well as the NFS protocol helper class into some sort of a configuration option that you will have to change for Manila to know that something has changed in the Ganesha side. So maybe the Ganesha server is repatriated somewhere else as part of a network change, or maybe you're doing one of these, which is going from dbus based interaction to Ganesha to Ceph manager based interaction. So once that config option is changed and Manila is bounced, the share manager service is bounced, that's when this ensure shares kicks in. And it's sort of like an async. It just takes everything that's there in the database, plays it back to the driver. So we do that, do the idempotent creations for the data file systems itself, as well as do this export bit, which is the only new part.
Okay, thanks. So basically at server level, let's say, we can probably have a consistent view of the shares that are already created from the older instances.
Yeah, exactly. And so the backend does not need to remember anything because Manila has all of that information.
Yeah. Okay. And this is just one part of the migration process, because one part is making sure that Manila is consistent with the view of the shares. The other part is probably related to the clients that need probably to remount the share if an IP, the virtual IP change.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, I think, a good segue into what is the implication of this, right? So the service taking care of the database cleanup and all that stuff seems a lot easier than what the clients would have to face here. The NFS server that's serving these requests is probably changing. That's the bottom line here. And in this case, with this change, the reason we're writing up this new protocol helper is because we want it to change into a place where where we can issue NFS Ceph manager NFS commands. So it may not be the same server. In case of Triple O, it is not the same server. We know that. So we're not in any position to maintain client connections between these two servers switching over. At least that's not, I mean, because these are outside of the purview of Manila itself. We don't have a solution to somehow non-disruptively hand over these client connections between two Ganesha servers. So that's the bigger challenge, I suppose. And so end users and clients would have to remount their file systems if they're going through this change. What can be done to ease this is kind of what we were also brainstorming. One is that you can have any number of Ganeshas exporting subvolumes from Ceph. So it doesn't matter if you want to keep the older Ganesha around. It's just that maybe all of the new file systems that Manila creates and exports are not going to use the old Ganesha anymore. They're only going to expose exports from the new Ganesha that you're setting up because they're using this new API and stuff. So that's one option. So if you want to permanently have your existing clients continue to connect to the old ones, old Ganesha, it's still possible, and we'll be able to even make it possible for us to put that in the database. And this is a evolving idea because this just came up at the OOO discussion earlier this week, whether we could keep the existing NFS
the existing
exports, existing daemon
yeah.
and the NFS exports that are exposed via Manila. So if you've created a thing and you're looking at the share export locations via the Manila API, those exports can still remain, except we now can possibly tag them as a non-preferred export while we are augmenting that list with the new exports that the drivers created on the new and shiny Ganesha instance. So this is definitely feasible as far as the driver goes, because we have the mechanism to handle multiple exports. We have export location metadata that the driver can set. So all of that can be even funneled right out through the API, and clients can use that easily. But I guess if they want to switch over at any point of time, and this is with any NAS server, it doesn't have to be CephFS. Let's say, you have a fancy Dell EMC storage system or something, and you want to change the IP addresses of the exports. This is bound to happen. You've got to have to disconnect your client and remount. So that would be the workflow. But with putting both of these export locations right through the API and preserving those export locations, we now provide the clients a longer switchover window, so that maybe each one of them probably has a different view of when downtime can be, and at that downtime they're willing to switch to a preferred path as opposed to a non-preferred path. And maybe in a release cycle or so, we can decide to just drop support for this alternate older NFS export IP and its older metadata that's there that we have tagged. So that's an option that the driver can do.
Yeah, I agree with this option, because you cannot see, you don't know, there are no standard use cases. Each customers or operators can have different shares, different use cases. So keeping that daemon there, preserving some old shares, that's probably the best way of making a smooth migration path. So we have the new code, we have the new driver. At some point, we can use this driver for new shares. If we can manage it within Manila with some API, it's probably better. But in theory, you are able to create two different entry points, as long as driver and Manila in general can handle more than one virtual IP with a Ganesha backend. Of course, it's probably easier for us making this migration. And it's not problematic keeping an older Ganesha daemon, as long as the virtual IP are different on the same network but different.
Yeah, agreed. So there should be some way that through configuration, we should be able to feed to Manila what the thing should be. Yep.
Yeah, and then the operator can decide if they want to remount their shares and migrate them with their downtime window.
So we are talking in the context of triple O, and in this scenario, like we will need to the operator will need to have the capability of upgrading by enabling the templates, the triple O heat templates they need in order to connect using this driver, plus keeping the old driver as well, or how would this work?
In the context of triple O, there is no, we can just enable the option that the driver needs, that the Manila configuration needs. By using the same template, we can improve the existing template, or we can just create a new environment file. It's we don't have restrictions on doing this. There,
Okay.
when we want the first stage is deploying the new Ganesha daemon, and that's a separated command that probably we can run regardless of stack updates because it's part of deployed Ceph, which is now a separated stage. And it's the first part. So at that point, you have your Ganesha active, you have your virtual IP, and you have a working environment using Ceph. Using Ceph ADM. The other part is during the stack update where we want to reconfigure, let's say, Manila to add new config options. So that should be a triple O with templates change over the or a puppet change. I don't remember exactly, but it's just a matter of aligning the configuration that is reflected to Manila conf, I guess. We have also the ability to run commands. So yeah, we should just figure out the path that we need. But it's basically based on two stages. One is deploy Ganesha before the overcloud. And for an existing overcloud, it's the same thing. We can just run the Ceph provided commands and create Ganesha, create the ingress daemon, create the virtual IP, and then we need to configure Manila during the overcloud, during a stack update in the triple context. For migration, it's this is the main point, but for migration, I think it's the same for any other tool.
Right, but in that second stage that you are describing, basically we will launch an instance of the Manila share service using the new version of the driver while keeping the old Ganesha deployment. Sorry.
Yeah, and this is not clear to me how we are going to keep two different drivers active with multiple virtual IPs, but it's not a big problem as long as we know what we need to change in config.
Right.
I mean,
so a question here: if we go with this approach and have the old NFS and the new triple O deployed NFS, what about data separation? Is a replication going to be used, or what is the thought there?
To copy data between the two Ganeshas or something?
Yeah, exactly. To keep them in sync, because now you have two, the existing, the older NFS export IP and locations, and then the new one. So is there a concern to keep the data, replicated between the two, or what is the approach there?
There can't be, I think. So the thing we can do over here is, I mean, we can continue to support, interacting with the old Ganesha, but I want it to actually, not be something that the driver needs to do. We might have to go too much distance to try to support a Ganesha that's actually being decommissioned, right? The intent over here is that sure, you have two Ganeshas, but we don't really want a situation where we're always living with two Ganeshas. This is we're clearly indicating that one of them is being decommissioned, and it's just an extended period of time that existing exports will be preserved via this mechanism, where we are going to represent those exports via the Manila API, and you get to continue to keep them mounted as long as that Ganesha is not deleted. So I don't think we want to replicate any data between the two Ganeshas. So as part of that, this thing clarifying that any access rule changes will not apply to the old Ganesha at all, because Manila is not going to communicate with the old Ganesha. It's just going to represent those export rules as something that the API will show, because there's something configured on Manila, but nothing else will work as part of that process. No access rule creations or deletions will be relayed to the existing Ganesha, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like moving forward. But until during the time that both of the Ganeshas are available, so it's up to the administrators and cloud users to keep the data separate. Is that how we? So I'm thinking in terms of testing. Do we test two instances with separate data on them, or how is, what's the best way to test that use case? Only during the time frame where we haven't deprecated the old Ganesha, right? And we possibly
so
have two.
Yeah, the kind of data that Ganesha has over here is the export information, as in who has access to mount the share or not.
Right.
Generally, it is not exposed to end users at all. We kind of abstract it away and hide it from end users. All end users have is the Manila API to say allow access to this person, to this client, to this IP address, or deny access to this IP address kind of thing. So presume that you have a bunch of access rules, you've gone ahead and mounted your shares, etc., in these clients, and you've started writing data, and you're going through this transition. So you now see, instead of seeing one export path, you now see two export paths. The path that you are using is going to be a non-preferred path, is what Manila is telling you. But you're writing your data, you're reading from it, it's all fine. There is no disconnection. That is something that we can definitely test, and we should enforce, that we're never going to lose connection to that. But that's the other part, that is, okay, so you decide to make some export changes, you decide to add new clients or remove clients from the existing list. Only the new export that's being shown via Manila as a preferred export path is what is accepting those changes. So if you continue to use the old export path and mount your share elsewhere in your new client, it will not work. It'll continue to work in the old client where it was working always. But if you try to put it on a new IP address or a new client, that old export path will no longer mount. You'll have to use the new export that's there from Manila.
Makes sense. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Perfect. Thanks, Gautam.
Yep. Does that make sense, though, to you, Francesco, in terms of, I mean, it's not a win-win, I think, in the sense, I guess some people would probably want Manila to continue to interact with the old Ganesha, but I'm hoping we don't have to go there.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. We need to support both, and we need to use the new preferred way, but without breaking the existing shares and instances. That's I think that's the main request.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great. All right. So just to make a note on this, right now we just discussed on the concept of triple O, and this is the way that we are thinking of solving this. But I know that there are other deployment tools in the OpenStack community that would need to follow a similar approach on how we are targeting this in triple O. So yeah, probably when we have more clear how we are going to move forward with this driver, we will need to sync up with them. But yeah, lot of work ahead in terms of deployment and day-to operations for this change. Cool. Anything else we need to cover for challenges? Any comment or question about any specific of the implementation or the migration planning we are brainstorming, or anything else?
No, I don't
I
think so. I
don't think
think you.
so.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think so. At some point, I guess when we have the driver, a working driver, we can start POCing this this part.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Awesome.
With regards delivery of this feature, and actually, well, this has to do with the following conversation we are going to have. We are depending on the CI to be active in order to test the driver changes. So I'm expecting, like, right now the change we are doing in Devstack-plugin-ceph, it's in good progress, but it's still not there yet. So I'm expecting this change on the driver in the Manila side to be available for review for set 2. I don't think we will reach set 1. Like, I would love that if that could happen, but I'm not sure. It really depends on having the CI changes in and working with the current drivers. So yeah, I don't know if you have any question of that, or if we can jump directly on the discussion about the Devstack-plugin-ceph, and we can, well, probably continue brainstorming about delivery in the context of that conversation.
Yeah, I think we should move to that topic because it's related and timeline depends, I guess, on the on changes on the Devstack side.
Okay, sounds good. So we don't have an interval for that. We only have a couple of links there. Basically, we have there the patch for review with the CI changes. Well, with the changes on Devstack-plugin-ceph, actually. Well, I can share some details from the Devstack point of view, but I would like Francesco to share details from the Ceph point of view, because basically, from the Devstack point of view, basically what we are doing is creating a different script that you can enable, like you can toggle in on or off, depending on if you want to use the current way of deploying Ceph cluster and FS Ganesha using packages, or if you can use Ceph ADM. So with this, we aim not to break anybody that is using this for the CI, and well, start testing the new implementation and adding, you know, different jobs for different services in an iterative way. And well, from the Ceph point of view, Francesco, do you want to share some details on how this was implemented?
Yeah, so basically the goal here is being feature parity with what we previously had with the other approach. The difference is we don't have any package-based installation here for Ceph. It's only containers. The code in this in the first review, the first patch, is basically working in terms of Ceph deployment and configuration for the other services, like the other approach basically is working. And we are currently working with some CI changes. We are hitting a few issues there. So we have 2 jobs in CI. One is for Ceph FS, because it's supposed to test this the native driver that should just work, and then it enables the changes that we need for NFS that are related to driver changes for Manila. The other change in CI, which is not probably listed here, it's related to the other tests, to the other services. Basically, it's all the services act like clients for Ceph ADM. So what we have done in this change is bootstrap the cluster, creates the all the things that are needed for Ceph to bootstrap, and then create pools, keys, and configure clients in terms of config files. And this approach is similar to the old way. We're not changing the way the other services are just are configured. We're just reacting over some variables that are defined at global level, Devstack, and we are configuring services as per the local RC config. So the code is already there. We just need to clean up it a bit and finalize the first review, but we're focusing at the moment to the CI changes. The other change, which is not listed here, is testing Glance, Cinder Backup, all the other services are configured with Ceph. And we are working on it, but we're not working actively on that change because we are focusing on the CephFS1 to enable the driver work and testing on the Manila side. So I'm not sure we want to share something about the failures in CI. Victoria, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea just to well share with the rest of the community which kind of blocks we are hitting right now. I see Gotham is shutting down some of the issues we're having.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of them, and is perhaps the one that is concerning us the most right now, is some failures we are seeing with the scenario test with native CFFS. And they are, for some reason, it's like they are timeouting. And this is something that is not happening with the previous, well, with the current version of Devstack-plugin-ceph script. But we don't believe it has to do with Ceph ADM at all. It's most related to the service image we are using for Manila and the Ceph Fuse client that we are using in their image. I don't know if Gotham or you, Francisco, have any other, I don't know, hints on this issue?
Just one consideration. This new way of deploying Ceph with Ceph ADM requires probably different sizing for the virtual machine used in CI. So Tempest is working except for the Ceph Fuse issues that we saw using concurrency 1. So we're running serial tests. Otherwise, you see a lot of failures that are not related to the tests themselves, but it's just a problem with sizing. I'm not sure I can reproduce them locally because I have a bigger virtual machine, so it's working for me. Even the Ceph Fuse, so it's confusing. Basically, the issue is not so clear at the moment. But we are trying to isolate the problem and see if it's a matter of CI or it's a matter of sizing, matter of resources, or it's a problem with the Ceph Fuse client in this particular issue. But the weird thing is that I'm not able to reproduce it locally. So we have a SSH timeout. I'm not sure the right way is to just increase timeout and see what's going on. We tried in a way in a Tempest just for experimenting, but it didn't work, and we still see the same issue. So I
Was
think
was it an SSH timeout or a mount timeout?
it was SSH.
Okay, and this was
Yeah,
something to do with SSHing into the test node itself.
yeah, I think
Okay.
so, because I don't see any issue related to the mount or a problem with the command itself. That's why I first saw it was a resources problem.
Yeah, a couple of things that we've tried, I think, is to update the Manila service client image and now try to use a really old Manila service client image, which is being used with the native CephFS job right now, with the way Devstack-plugin-ceph is right now, which uses RPM packages and such. And the problem was that the Ceph service, so the Ceph client in the service image comes from Ubuntu, and they don't have all the bug fixes that are necessary. So we have a tracker ticket on Ceph, which is not yet triaged. So we might just be running into some weird,
Issues,
packaging
yeah.
issues
Mhm.
over here. And I mean, we could switch out and use CentOS and see if that can help. So we'll try a few things and probably report back to the CephFS community uh, and see if they have some better ideas here. For one, I mean, part of this is also we're questioning the rationale of testing Ceph views this much, because I mean, the Ceph community prefers to tell people to use the kernel client, although there are some strong reasons to use Ceph views, but we're not seeing this locally, but we're seeing this on the CI. So that's kind of tripping us up. Uh, Interestingly.
Yeah, I have no strong opinion on how this should be tested, because my first goal was to reach, let's say, feature parity with what we had before. So the only thing I can think about at the moment is a resources problem, because I'm not even able to reproduce it locally. If it was a bug, I think I should see, within the interaction with Ceph ADM, I should have seen it in even locally, I guess. And it's a timeout, so it made me think about resources.
Yeah, I actually facing the same. I run the scenario test with the latest change we have in Devstack-plugin-ceph and with the latest image we built, even though they have the outdated Ceph views client, and I'm not able, like, for several runs, I'm not able to hit the same issues we are hitting in the CI. I sometimes have some tests failing due to timeouts, but it's not always the same tests. And yeah, most of the time they all pass. So it's something that's, well, it's happening to me, also happening to Francesco. It's really weird. At this point, it's
Yeah,
like we're just testing different things to see if we can fix that, but this is still on the works.
yeah, and if we look at the other change for Devstack, the other CI change, that switch all the other services, there are failures that are related to probably memory, because some processes like MySQL were killed. And there it's even worse, because we probably need to review the CI resources, the CI sizing, I guess.
Francesco, quick question. So you mentioned you had tried increasing this. It's like the timeout. Was also the retries increased or just the timeout?
It was just a timeout, but it wasn't it wasn't the SSH timeout actually. It was a sleep before sending the command. Because I saw in the logs, I saw many attempts waiting for the instance being built and then active. So at first I thought putting a sleep and see how it goes, but it was the same. I saw the timeout, the SSH timeout is 5 minutes. So I wasn't sure I'm not sure we want to have it, to increase it.
That's an eternity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can afford that on CI.
I remember hitting into issues like that as well, but the tests I ran were using CentOS, CentOS 9 at the time. And yeah, I remember running into issues for SSH timeout. I did remember trying to update the expected timeout as well, but in my case, it didn't work. But I mean, I think if it's the case to test it with CentOS as well, there were a few bugs that were fixed, so there shouldn't be any more issues with trying to set an environment up with CentOS now.
Yeah, that's probably a good options. At least I was out of ideas, so testing with CentOS with bug fixing, it's probably the best, the next move here.
So this is, well, basically I imagine that we need to create a service image with CentOS and the required packages there. I don't know if we have done this before, or if you have usually used Ubuntu for the service image in Manila. I do recall having some these image builder elements in the Manila elements, well, repo with CentOS, right?
Yeah, we do have them, and we haven't built it in a while, but we can go back to do that. Or just, I mean, if you just want to try it, you can just upload an image somewhere and just pull it down using the config option and see if it works before we go through the trouble of, publishing
makes sense.
CentOS images as well.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we should probably, that would be our next step.
And
All right.
what is to be, what's the AI here for the other services? I suppose there are some test failures. We haven't looked at them, is what I gather, right?
For the
Yeah.
other services, you mean?
Yeah.
For the other patch?
For Cinder, Nova,
Yeah.
Glance, etc.
So yeah, the other failures are related to the fact that some services lose connection with database. I think it's probably for a matter of resources even there. But I'm not sure because I can't reproduce them locally. So I think it's probably a matter of having a different sizing for the CI virtual machine. I run if you look at the last 3 runs, probably they're hitting the same issues, losing MySQL, basically.
So basically it's like the services are losing connection with the control plane database.
Yeah.
Okay. So that doesn't sound like really related to actually how we are deploying Ceph. Like
No, but of course Ceph is different rather than when we had package installation. Now it's containers. Well, we have Ceph ADM that runs in an infinite loop. So we also create a new function only for CI to disable it after the Ceph cluster is deployed, because it helps saving memory and resources for the virtual machine. But in general, this is not the root cause of the failures, because it's not eating such a lot of memory. It's the combination.
I see. But so is it possible for us to put the OpenStack compute node outside of this stuff, because I think there was a multi-node job that was testing Nova and Cinder in this Ceph repo, Devstack-plugin-ceph repo. So if we have like a OpenStack isolated compute node, would that consume less resources on the Ceph cluster node?
Yeah, that's probably an option.
So guys, sorry to interrupt, but I see a comment from Radat on the chat. The senior team is here on the call and they would like to know the impact of the changes of First Cinder. And well, I think it's a good moment to ask them if they had the chance to look into different failures that we are hitting, if well, those related to Cinder, if they may be related to well, Ceph ADM, or if there is some issue or some failure that they identify as something else, and well, can help us debugging this.
So regarding Cinder, it's not such different. It's because the change in Devstack is just reconfiguring services like the old way did. So there is nothing changed there. We probably need some help debugging the issues. But first, I want to exclude it's a problem of sizing for the CI. Otherwise, because there is an effort to reproducing them locally and try to see if there is something wrong with the config. I think the first step for the Cinder team is reviewing the main change. See the change for Devstack, for Ceph ADM, and look for different things. Maybe we are just skipping commands. There are misconfiguration somehow. I don't know. In theory, we just followed the old path and we created exactly the same configuration that was done in the package Ceph installation. Because it's just a matter of keys and pools and the right keying. And I see the services can can interact with the Ceph cluster using libraries. So the first thing, yeah, is reviewing that change. You can find a topic, a set of patches, and the second thing is then moving to the CI change that is testing. Maybe we can think about splitting the CI changes into more reviews to test single components if it's better for multiple teams and avoid to look at the same failure. Maybe that can help, like we did for CephFS. We can just create a different Tempest test that is supposed to test Cinder, another one that is supposed to test glance, and we can ping people from each team to review those changes in case of failures.
Yeah, and also not only for the different services, but each service has different jobs creating different scenarios. So we will need to actually try the most basic scenario and then just keep adding different jobs using Ceph ADM so we can finish the mapping that we need to do.
But the default jobs should already help in that. I mean, all the Devstack plugins, so Devstack itself and all the Devstack plugins run at least a basic deployment job when several Tempest tests. And if I didn't link the wrong review, the one I linked there, 8542. Okay, got it too small. Yeah, you can see that on line 200 currently. So if I understand correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that's the patch which tries to switch the deployment to Ceph ADM, and that means that all the results there are from all the components which are tested by that patch. So if you see the results of both the Devstack-plugin-ceph Tempest by 3 and also Devstack-plugin-ceph multi-node Tempest by 3. So we already have jobs which run all the services. Now, the question, I guess, is once they stabilize and they start to be green in these testing jobs, maybe they can be added by default in the main check queue in the Devstack-plugin-ceph itself, like duplicating the ones that we have, which runs against the old way of deploying, the manual way, and just create a copy of them, which sets the Ceph ADM deployment. So unless I misunderstood, but the point is that there is no need to create many additional jobs. We just need to create the Ceph ADM version of the existing job, and that should be
Yeah.
at least unless, of course, for Manila you need also the specialized one because you have a special deployment. But for the other services, there is no need.
Yeah, these are integrated Gate jobs, right? In a sense, they're just going to run the full Tempest suite. So I guess I dropped in a link to the place where MySQL is breaking on that same change. And this is from the Cinder volume service where it's losing connection to MySQL. So this is the current challenge that we're hitting, I guess.
Yeah,
and
so
is it visible everywhere?
Yeah, the long-term solution is to have the same job switched to Ceph ADM, of course, testing all the services together. My concern is basically related to the sizing of these CI VMs, because we are facing issues that are not strictly related to the way we are deploying, but for resources, for the resources assigned to this machine.
But did you compare the size? I mean, we cannot change the machines we're using, unfortunately, but is the Ceph ADM by default using bigger, using more space for all the required Ceph parts? Or maybe it's just a matter of tuning them, even though they are going to be not exactly nice.
Yeah, so we already solved the problem of capacity, because at the beginning we had the capacity filter returning 0 hosts, and now we are able to create through parameters and the way the VM is partitioned, we are able to place the loopback image file in different locations. So we are able to solve this problem, and it's already solved, of course. Sometimes we using concurrency more than one. So when we are not running Tempest serially, we hit other capabilities filter issues because no hosts are returned. So this is the main point. The first thing is reducing Tempest to serial. Then we can compare how the Ceph ADM based cluster works against the older version, but we have no other options of deploying Ceph ADM. So I don't know. I don't know which is the best solution. Splitting the jobs was just an option to save resources. But there is a value of testing everything together. So I see your point.
Yeah, but even if you split the jobs, it's not like you're saving resources, because you are deploying all this. I mean, unless you're removing some services, that's
I see. You are changing backend, but you have already you have all the services.
You can reduce the example. I think we discussed. Sorry, I'm now starting to my brain is starting to fully context switch. So I think we discussed this a bit. I think you were trying also to reduce the concurrency. Did that help or?
It helped, and now concurrency is 1. So we are using serial, and we made the change in the CephFS review. where we saw a lot of issues, and using concurrency one, so running everything in serial, we just see these Ceph views issues, but they are different, and they are, of course, an issue that can be related to other root causes. We're not just saying it's a problem of sizing, we're investigating it. But of course, having concurrency one helped a lot.
Okay, but there are still issues. And anyway, I mean, even if it helps, I'm not sure it can be used as a full long-term solution. So, well, anyway. Okay, so to summarize, at least from Cinder and the course around can probably, that's the time for questions, but I guess the request we have on our side is to review generally the code, because I think all Cinder cores are also core on Devstack-plugin-ceph, so it's in your interest to check that, and also help checking the failure in Cinder specifically.
And Victoria and Francesco, another option is to turn on the Ceph Atom even in the multi-node job. That one does not derive from the one that you're modifying. So give that a shot, I guess, because we do have a dedicated compute node in that case.
Yeah. That would probably help, and this is one of the next steps.
Great. Any more thoughts you'd like to ask, Mark, or questions?
Nothing else from my side. Maybe, yes, if we can extend the request for Nova folks and Glance folks to look into the change and check their respective services and see if they are passing or if there is some issue that they are seeing, that would be really appreciated.
I have, sorry guys, if asking something stupid, I might have missed it in the early part of the conversation. Is the Ceph ADM version of the plugin deploying the same version that it's installed on bare metal via packages on Ubuntu without Ceph ADM, or is it a different version of Ceph?
It's same, it's specific.
Ah, okay. So there is no risk of incompatibilities, let's say, in the OpenStack projects with the version of Ceph, but it's more probably the deployment aspects that it's different. Well, that it's the cause of the issue, let's say.
You're right.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
Anytime.
So I guess we have already found out one issue with Cinder backup and Ceph ADM not running correctly, and we already have a change fix. So the Cinder team can take a look at that Devstack patch as well.
Yeah, I just linked the patch because with Ceph ADM, the flow is looking at the variables to define at local RC level, and then there is at some point this function called configure Ceph, where we are looking for all the services that needs the Ceph cluster that are needed for Ceph cluster, and we are creating pools, keys, and make the config changes. Cinder backup is one of them, and there was an impact on this that you can see on this change. I linked there related to the fact that before we were using the Ceph CLI because it was a package installation. Now we don't have to use the Ceph CLI, the Ceph commands from the host. And also at that point, when you reach that point, the pool is already created.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
Feel free to review it.
All right, so we are already at the top of the time we had available for this session. So giving back the control to Carlos. If there are more questions, comments, or anything, you can reach us on IRC, on the OpenStack Manila channel or Cinder channel. Well, you know where to find us. So yeah, so looking forward to your comments, and thank you very much to everyone.
Would just like to request the Sender team that we can join our meeting room. Like we can get back to the meeting room. Yeah, thanks, Manila team.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. Cool.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Victoria and Francesco. Gotham. Yeah, this was a good session. I think this then we can wrap up the Devstack plugin changes, and we can get a break. We are a few like for an hour basically between the topics, so we can get I think yeah, 5-minute break. How does that sound to you? I think it can be more. Can use the 10 minutes now.
You're very generous. Thanks, Carlos. 10 is good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I will set a timer here, and then we will be
Thanks.
back in
See you
10
in 10.
minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so we did cover some good items during this day for the PTG, and we still have a few more interesting topics to take a look at. The next one we are going to have is about the bug updates for Manila. And yeah, Vida is going to be talking to us about some bug updates and some things. We did mention this during the retrospective, but Vida, we let some things to be discussed over the session. So Vida, floor is yours.
Thank you, Carlos. So on Monday, we briefly talked about bugs. It seemed to be an interesting subject for everybody, and I'm happy to dive into it. First, I wanted to share the Launchpad. If you would switch to it, Carlos. Yeah. And yeah. So if you look at so this is the Manila bugs that we review and follow and triage on a weekly basis and a regular basis. And if you look at the column on the right, you will see in the third section, it says new bugs, open bugs, in progress bugs, and also a breakdown of high priority, like critical and high importance bugs. So this is what basically is, I think, our North Star for the most part, as far as the stats. You can see that there's 132 open bugs, 29 in progress. The bugs in progress mean that there is a patch or a proposed fix needing to be reviewed, and then down from there, they're pretty self-explanatory. The way that we approach triaging the bugs, first off, is on a weekly basis. If you switch back to the Etherpad, Carlos, yeah. So you'll see on next line 228, there's two primary methods that we approach triaging bugs. The first one is any new coming bugs and high priority bugs that are on our list on a weekly basis. We talk to the community and triage them and folks get assigned or work on them. The second way is through bug squashes, which are like bulk approach to basically resolve and triage bugs as we need them. Typically in cycles, we've had at least 2 bug squashes. The first one, we try to have it early in the session, in the cycle. And those are for complex bugs that take time to, make the changes, test them, review them. So that's typically the first bug squash. And then we try to have a second one at least a little later in the cycle definitely before RC1. And that includes a mix of bugs that we select. Ooh, sorry about that. And yeah. So quick results that I wanted to go over. As you noticed, our numbers are down. We have kept up with every critical and important high priority bug that came in. The critical bug that you saw on the list was actually just came in yesterday. So we keep our noses clean in this space. And then I can go over the analytics and kind of tell you where we can really improve our bug backlog and increase our quality down the line. So a brief overview of the bug squash schedule, where we schedule it. As I mentioned, for the yoga cycle, we had a M1 bug squash in the time frame, which consisted of 20 some plus bugs, and then the M3 RC1 bug squash, which was some stale bugs, but not as much. Mostly, we tried to just approach what we needed to get through the release. As far as the bug backlog, which is like one of the big targets that I'm hoping we can catch in the next cycle, is how do we increase our yield in terms of stale bugs, which we define them as bugs that are older than 2 years or haven't been updated in over a year. And the other part of it is the review, bugs that require, patch reviews and fix merges. And these directly basically impact the quality of the code. So they're very important. And if you switch to the link in 238, line 238. Okay. So one approach was to basically bulk review, like have a bug squash and focus on bugs needing reviews. At the moment, there's like 29 bugs, for example, and this has been a trend for us, over 20 bugs needing reviews. So we tried to, in the previous cycle in Xena, we had like 20 some odd of these in progress bugs that we asked the community to help us, release the fixes, and that really helped. That was a very good practice. If I add the numbers between the stale bugs on the chart, which is like 63, and there's 29 in progress bugs, that's about 70% of the total bug backlog that we have. So you can see how important it is for us to address these bugs needing review, the fixes needing reviews, and stale bugs. So switching back to the Etherpad, we talk about the stale bugs. So if we can, implement these strategies, having bug squashes, maybe something like festival of reviews that some other projects call them. If we continue having this and then nail the strategy to address these old stale bugs, I think will drastically improve quality and help us deal with the backlog, because that 70% number speaks for itself. that brings, basically help us kind of see the tree from the forest, like which bugs should we prioritize, which ones should we focus our attention to. So if you click on the link on line 240, thank you. So as of this morning, I made a list of all the stale bugs. You can see that the list is long. There's some bugs that have been in the queue for anywhere from 6 years down to 3 and 2 years. Some haven't been touched in over a year at all. And so this is the I think that for the next cycle, for this current cycle, we want to focus definitely on the stale bugs and review them and come up with a strategy to approach them, as well as the bugs needing review. Any questions so far? Okay. So we did talk about this in previous PTGs, and our idea was that any bugs that haven't been updated in over a year and age over 2 years, we could just bulk update them and put a comment in the bug saying that, asking the owner or the community to provide feedback about it, and move. There's an automated way that we were thinking about doing this using the Launchpad API feature, is to find these bugs, which I already created the list for us above, and move them to incomplete. Allow the community to, some time to provide feedback. Let us know if this issue still exists, or the importance or the heat for it, discuss it. And the bugs that basically nobody claims or nobody claims to be an issue, we just, they're incomplete and automatically they expire, which means that they will stay in the database. If it's seen again, people can reopen them. But in the meantime, we'll have some data point, how important they are, and if they have shown up at all in our space. So that was the stale bug approach. And again, hopefully we can get some feedback through the PTG and see if this is the way that we want to go. I did bring this up in a previous PTG and we didn't get a lot of feedback. I'm not sure if there's resistance or this is the way we want to go. So it's good to talk about this. Some other suggestions. Gotham, go ahead.
Yes, no, this is awesome. I was going to say, part of the thing, I guess this is a multi-year effort. I mean, it is coming down to these, palatable numbers like 132 open bugs. That's way more palatable than what we used to have. And the thing that you said about us making sure there are no high and critical bugs that are lingering, that goes to, I mean, I guess everybody's work in the community. That's pretty awesome. So everything that's there is medium and lower with the potential to schedule and not really drop everything and work on it sorts, which is where these events, like you said, Vida, are really helpful. And I like how you're now adding a twist to them in the sense. I like how you're trying to make them more fun by naming them, having a theme around them and stuff. So totally in support for that. So I want to discuss that further if we have some time. And the aspect of incomplete to auto expiry thing, I think we were okay with this. I guess in the past, I mean, even I used to be a little nervous about automatically expiring something, and Tom used to be as well. So it because they're having a deterministic timeline saying, oh, hey, things that are older than a year, we're just not going to worry about it. But I think, I mean, with all these years of driving the project with the kind of maturity that we have right now, that sort of insecurity is no longer warranted, in the sense, if a bug's been around for long and if there isn't anybody bubbling it up, there is no update on the bug at all. Nobody's asking for that particular bug to be resolved and stuff. So the heat just keeps dying down, and you're seeing a bug that's 6 years old. Then it's clearly not a bug, and not really something they need to pay attention to. So I'm also in support of the automatic bug expiry thing, and so maybe we should talk about what that um, that window is. Are you considering it to be by release cycle, or are you looking for a particular age, maybe 2 years? What is that going to be? So
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotham, thanks for great feedback. But I think, just showing you this list of, 6-year-old bugs and so many of them, and nobody has updated them in a while, speaks for itself. But initially, I think we were thinking about, moving the bugs to incomplete with an annotation. And the annotation is in that previous bug squash ethercalc that we showed you for. And there's a note, it's a specific canned note that we're going to add to the bug, and then tell folks this is how long this bug is going to stay incomplete before it expires. So there won't be any surprises, and we can negotiate that time frame. I think maybe initially it definitely won't be weeks. There'll be plenty of time. I mean, we are in no rush to bypass any major issues, and we want to give the community enough time to get back to us if there's anything. So I'd say certainly a release cycle is possible, but more than that, I think we need to keep reminding folks during the weekly IRC meetings that, hey, we did this effort, please do take a look. Let us know if this is still an issue. It's not like we just set the timer and forget about it. I really would like to get community collaboration on it and get them informed. So that's the key part. We want to get feedback before these bugs expire. And expiring doesn't mean they're going to extinguish, right? They're still going to be in the bug database. So if they do show up, we're going to get natural, basically feedback from the field, because people will search, find them, and then they reopen them. So it won't go away forever. It's still going to be in the database.
Yes, and it's still the advantage though is that it's going to be away from us looking at it and going like, oh, this is an issue that we need to pay attention to. So I like that idea.
Exactly. Like I said, it helps us kind of see the tree from the forest. Like, what are the important issues? Right now, looking at these 60-some bugs, none of us can tell. And it's always a priority, right? We're all very busy. We're choosing, prioritizing feature over, critical bugs, over so many things. So it helps us prioritize as well. If something turns up 3 times and it shows up in the next 6 months, then it'll be on our radar for sure. So it helps in many ways, prioritizing it as well and putting our resources to it. Any more comments about this or questions? Any discussion points? Do people feel comfortable with setting the, giving everybody like a release cycle? Or do you think it's too generous? Any feedback on that? Because we can certainly discuss it, again, but just curious if folks in this meeting have any thoughts about it.
So I think it is okay. And yeah, that sounds like a good plan for me. And yeah, we can, if there is someone like missing the discussion, we can keep like reinforcing that idea. We can bring that up in a Manila meeting, for example, again, and then we can like remind people of that. And yeah, I mean, as Victoria said, we need to fight the fear of missing bugs. And yeah, it's good that this expiring thing like only we'll add this message, and then if you want to revive that bug, you can do that. And I think that will help us also, as you mentioned, to like see what bugs are actually relevant and what are the things that we have been working on, because there are a lot of bugs that do not have haven't been updated for a while, and they also don't have much like they didn't have fixes for them or something like that. So yeah, we can try to take a look at the ones that are in progress and try to get the reviews moving for those. But for the other ones, we can definitely like follow with this plan.
Perfect. Sounds good. So the action for the stale bugs is almost immediate. We can go ahead and do this. And anybody who wants to follow that, there is a bin in that Launchpad page. It's specifically called expiry bugs. So it'll be a separate bin, and people can follow up where they are and monitor them for the duration. Okay. If no other questions or comments, just briefly wanted to kind of recap what we talked about during the retroactive. And the first thing was wanted to mention that we are actually effectively doing the stale bug reviews. We are doing the festival of extra small reviews and so forth. It's just that they're covered under the Bug Squash umbrella name. So, and the theme, we always mention the theme. That's what we're doing in this Bug Squash, but we never, explicitly named it as such. So wanted to bring it up and see if, do we prefer to add a name to it, have something like Bug Squash, Festival of Reviews, or Bug Squash, stale bugs in our basically the meeting agenda, because it's always listed on the EtherCalc, so people know exactly what they're reviewing, but we haven't just exposed it, like giving it a name. So if there's any thoughts, we can just simply add, when we add the agenda or for our meeting notes, we can add this qualifier. Let me know now, or let us know later if you have a preference. But effectively, we are doing the work. It's just labeling it in our meeting notes, I think.
Yeah, sure.
So that was the first point.
One of the things is, a couple of, we try to space these bug squashes out, and we've done some of this, what I'm planning to share right now. So which is the first of the bug squashes happens somewhat in the beginning of the cycle. So it probably is around M1. And the second one is happening after M3. So the one after M3 is concentrating on any bugs that have been introduced during the cycle, and also anything else that we can manage to get into RC. But the one at M1, we've typically not actually concentrated on those big bugs, which we're very nervous to take up at the very end. So there are some that just keep rolling around from cycle to cycle, and by that it's a request for enhancement. Perhaps somebody is looking for an API change. A thing that I can think of is we have some broken pagination workflows, and we kind of punted from release to release because we didn't pick it up at the very beginning of the release. So maybe bugs like that should probably feature in the first part of the release. And that goes also with like the stale bugs in a sense, because even the ones which are stale are probably stale because we just didn't have some time to schedule them into the cycles. So if folks are interested to pick up one of those long pending efforts, which is now considered a stale bug, that's probably a good time, because you have the whole cycle to kind of hone it, and you don't need to, but if it does run into that you're making some major API change to get your bug in, you have enough soak time by the end of the cycle.
Perfect. So in line 233 for M1 bug squash, we have been focusing on complex bugs early in cycle. I just added stale bugs over there. It was in the later cycle. So thanks for the feedback, Gautam. So we are going to basically focus on that too in the early cycle bug squashes. Okay. Any other comments before I move to the next item? Future suggestions?
When it comes to stale bugs, do we mean specifically the ones that are less than 2 years old and they're just something that we have continuously pushed back? In that, like what Gotham was saying, that it might be an RFE and no one wanted to pick it up at the time, and those are the stale bugs that we mean that we should start at the beginning of the cycle.
Yeah. So the stale bugs, line 241, that's the criteria. It's we have been looking. It's pretty loose. It's not very strict. It's older than 2 bugs, age older than 2 bugs, and bugs that haven't been updated. If you look at that list above it, the EtherCalc list above it. So anything older than 2 years that hasn't been updated recently, and also priority is a factor. We don't want high priority, urgent bugs in that list. So my criteria has been anything less than medium is a candidate, like, low, also priority. That's pretty much it.
And these bugs that are, I mean, like the oldest ones are like 6 years, but I remember when we did our own stale bug squash, there were a few that were no longer valid bugs.
Mm-hmm.
So this list that we have on 240, are we going to, have they already been parsed to see if they're still valid or if it's some outdated test or something? Like all of these are a list of 60 bugs that are old, but we can still address it?
Yeah, exactly. So this is a list pending for us to review. And, the idea is once we set them to incomplete, of course, people can comment on them, right now, or we could have a bug squash of a part of this list during this cycle. But I think what Gotham was suggesting was to go ahead and set it incomplete. We'll give it plenty of time for expiry, like a release cycle, and then folks can basically give us feedback, because some of these could already have been addressed, or they're no longer valid, as we found out in the previous bug squash for stale bugs. So yeah, but this is the pending list that we have. My suggestion would be, if we had cycle to have another bug squash and vet these out, would be great. But that expiry, the incomplete status, will give us that time to get the feedback from community, the owners. Because of that comment, we're going to add to the bug, right? We're going to ask the bug owner to let us know if they still see this issue or not. And so organically, we get that feedback that are wide and broad from all the owners that have the bugs lingering around for like 6 years or so. So it'll be good feedback.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So that means for this like first milestone in this cycle, it'll be tackling the bugs.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Can't hear you. All right, just a few more points. So just wanted to mention that, like this past cycle, the yoga cycle, we missed about 5 or 6 bug sessions, which means that we had to skip them because of not enough time, or overlap with some other events, and that's a lot. Considering that we're still maintaining our bug triage, to this level, it's great, but it does cost us a lot of lost triage time. So this past cycle, what we started to do was every time there's a bugs basically session that we skip due to some reason in the weekly community meeting, we're going to immediately take it right after that meeting. We're going to take it over to OpenStack Manila channel and put it up for triage. And this is only for new bugs, not when we are, revisiting bugs. Anything that's new and critical, we'll take it over to OpenStack Manila so we get immediate coverage for those new bugs. And that way we'll always stay on top of anything new that comes into our radar. Thanks for the feedback. Last one, next to the last is EtherCalc. I think we all know. It seems to have scaling issue or some connectivity issue. And I'm going to open it up. I have started looking into some alternatives. I think Etherpad, having the backup Etherpad is helpful, but it's not the same format. And then we have to switch all the data back and forth. So ideally, if there's alternatives, I think would be something good to have a discussion sometime later. And last but not least, as in other previous PTGs, I'm going to ask the community if, just to remind you, this is a rotation role. So if anybody's interested to, I'm glad to pass the baton. If anybody likes to take on the management from Manila in this cycle or in the future. Let us know. Get back to Carlos, myself, and Gotham, and I'll be available to help in any way I can to support the transition. So
yeah, I want to add that add to that last bit, Vida.
Everything that I wanted to talk about with respect to bugs. Please feel free to talk. Just contact me, DM me, or in any way in between sessions. But I'd love to hear from you guys, positive, negative, anything, feedback. And thanks, Carlos. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Vida. Gotham, you were.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we have some audio issues on Vida's end, but she was perfectly audible, so that's good. So on the rotation bit, Vida has mentioned this over multiple cycles. That it is quite draining to be the only one doing this, and I'm just happy that we've had all of these different strategies and had such a huge amount of progress.
Let me drop off and join again. I don't hear anybody, so I'll be back.
Yep. So yeah, but just wanted to add an endorsement that I think it's time. If you're looking to help the community and to try and also get a better grip of the code base and become a maintainer, this is a good thing to consider. It does not take a lot of time. You probably can set aside an hour or so to do triage, a little bit of pre-triage before each meeting, and just coordinate the bug triage during the meetings. And we anyway take turns to work with whoever is the bug champion to do the bug squash events and stuff. So if you're interested, now's the time to speak up, or contact Vida after this.
Yes. Yeah, it's Vida's been doing an awesome job on this on the role, and yeah, but if you'd like to help with that as well, you're totally welcome. Thank you for mentioning that, Vida and Gotham.
Hi, Carlos, I'm back. Can you? Yeah, I just heard you, so it seems like audio is fine now.
Okay.
Awesome. So just to, loop back, was there any questions, any feedback, anything that I missed while I dropped off and rejoined?
Your audio was perfectly clear, so I was just mentioning how the rotation could work in case somebody was interested, Vida.
Oh, okay, sure. I can catch up offline. Looks like we're on time, so keep it that way. Wait, 5 more minutes, 2 more minutes.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Vida. Yeah, so any
Sure.
more questions, any more thoughts to share on this?
Do we have a bug squash scheduled yet for the M1 type?
Not yet.
All right.
We
But
will,
we will
yeah.
have one.
Not yet, but I think we should run a poll now, right? What do you think about, like, trying to schedule both the hackathon that we want to do for the functional tests for OSC and the the first and the second bug squash that we have in mind?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm trying to search for the poll option in Zoom, but I'm not being able to.
Oh, you're thinking too fancy. I thought we just like asked.
Do you want to just use a doodle or something? Or, oh, you're thinking verbal, right, Gotham?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's just do
Ad hoc.
Yeah, that would work out perfectly, actually.
Carlos, if you show us, if you share the schedule with us, maybe help us pick a spot in between there. The link to Zed.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we were talking about having the hackathon close to Z1. So I don't want to have, I don't know if you want to have those two being too close to each other. So yeah, but I also think we could have this before Z2, and I don't want to be disrupted. I think we don't want to be disrupted by or disrupt the opening for Summit as well. So what if we do the hackathon like on this week or this one, and we can have the bug squash like close to this, or even like earlier than the hackathon? What do you guys think?
Is the first week of May, has it got any holidays worldwide? I'm actually trying to see. I think it's it's a long weekend in the US, so it's probably not feasible.
Yeah, I know it's a holiday in May 1st in Brazil, but yeah,
Okay.
it does not fall into this week. It's going to be the week before.
I think in the US it's Memorial Day, right? Which is like towards the end of May.
The end of May. Okay.
Yeah.
So not the first week of May.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not. So
I
that's
think
probably
first
the
week,
time
yeah.
slot.
Okay, so first week of May, we can do the bug squash, the first bug squash. And then we can have the hackathon towards Z1. How does that sound?
That gives us a week in between. That sounds doable.
Sorry, can you repeat that? You said hackathon on Z1
Yes,
and the bug squash 2 weeks before?
yes.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, agreed. And if you swap that, any concerns, like, do you think the hackathon is more of a burnout?
Yeah, I think it might be because like there will be, I think there will be a lot of tasks there and a lot of
And a lot of reviews that come after as well. Yeah, okay. I like this plan. So you're saying bug squash first and then hackathon. That's fine.
Yeah, so then we can, I don't know if like everybody agrees with that, but Okay, the idea is bug squash from in this week from May 2nd to May 6th, and then we have the hackathon in the Z1 milestone. Sounds good for everybody?
Yeah, looks good.
Agreed.
Awesome. Thanks, Carlos. This sounds great. Did we want to tackle the second bug squash now? Scheduling it as well?
Yeah, sounds good.
So that was closer to RC1 or M3. Yeah. In the past.
Yeah, we could make it earlier, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we'd want to conflict with like the week or 2 weeks before feature freeze because that's like crunch time usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's usually when, so like Zed freeze, August 29, September 2nd, before that. It's typically when we schedule it.
We can do end of July, beginning of August.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
there's
sounds good.
good schedule over there. Yep, good slot.
So August 1st to August 15th. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. M1. Then. And then the hackathon. It's in the Z1 week. Awesome. All right, folks. Thank you. I can actually I did update or upload the change with the schedule changes. I don't know if I shared that with you, but yeah, I will have more time to talk about that too. But I can also add these activities to the official schedule too. So and then you guys can take a look there. Cool. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? I think we have a few. We need to jump to the next topic. So if there is something else you'd like to bring up or any more thoughts to share, I think we can switch to the next one. Okay, I'll take silence as a no. So yeah, next topic is Metadata API status update. Ashley, floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Carlos. So it's a super quick update. Last cycle, I also have the Etherpad there for anyone interested in what the goal was that we outlined last cycle. But excuse me, in the yoga cycle, I did manage to merge the shares metadata API refactoring, which included the admin-only metadata capabilities. There is a small regression. The bug was raised yesterday. It's a pretty big, well, not a big issue, but it is critical. And it's a quick fix though, and I'll have that up by probably next week. And Gotham also proposed a fix to Tempest to make sure that we catch any issues like that again. So that was last cycle. The goals for this cycle, for M1 specifically, I would like to have the share snapshots, API changes, and the CLI changes merged, excuse me, merged by M1. The API changes are ready for review, and the CLI changes, there's one stupid Pep8 bug that's bugging me, has been bugging me for a while, haven't quite managed to iron that out, but that's pretty much the only thing left. That's why I'm considering it work in progress. The Tempest changes for the share snapshots has been, it's in the same patch as the shares refactoring changes. It was pretty much just a shares client within the Tempest plugin update to incorporate the new micro version and the related changes. So that's all there, and it's pretty much ready for review as well. For the most part, all the metadata, the new metadata API additions are one and the same per resource. It's just a few specifics that changes. So I'm hoping to get at least 2 or 3 additional resources in for the cycle, since it'll be mostly copy paste and just writing additional tests. And since I've already done those changes with share snapshots, it's a pretty easy bulk fix. And that's pretty much it for the updates, really. Super short. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any.
Yeah, which of these? I mean, if you were to say, like, is there a priority list that you had?
I would say export locations and share access rules priority for Zed, because export locations does have a form of metadata, but it's not a user-defined one. That's something for the service. So I would want to make sure that those two don't interact and it's not messed up. And also, share access rules would have some, like a caveat or two regarding the router that I would have to address, and some overrides as well. Some of that I had already addressed or tried to address in an earlier patch that has since been abandoned, but I do have some changes already started that I can pick up from there. So export locations and access rules would be the top 2 that I would want to get after share snapshots, since they already have something existing and something that might require a little bit more thought. But for the other resources that were listed in the spec, there isn't anything major except maybe instances and replicas, since they're kind of the same thing, but not quite. So, but that's pretty much the only thing.
Awesome, makes sense. Yeah, I like this plan. I think, yeah, from the get-go we could have split these out, but I guess we were trying to avoid the micro version changes and the database migrations. But as you've attempted, like, I think running into thousands of lines is also not a good way to push a change like this, because I mean, we would have all of these testing challenges and not to mention the review challenges.
Definitely.
So I like this change of plan for us.
Thanks.
Awesome. So share snapshots, at what degree of readiness? You said the Manila side is ready, the client is not, for us to test it, kinds?
Yeah, it's I had to do an override for creating metadata at the same time that you create a snapshot, and there's a it's a pep issue that I should be able to just ignore, since it's a micro versioning thing, but it's not ignoring it when I expect it to. So that's really the only thing left. Oh, actually, that's a lie. I think I'm missing just one API method implementation, which is the update all method, which isn't part of the usual set, unset, list, create, but that would be the only missing command. So yeah, one Puppet issue and one command. It shouldn't take too much time. And then that would be ready for review. Tempest test is also ready for review.
Awesome.
Yeah, nice to see all the Tempest tests passing. So if we can square away the client, this actually looks like a Z1 deliverable.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And we can try to target the reviews early in the cycle, so we don't get like all of the changes to merge at the end of it. So you mentioned it. It will possibly be easier to implement the other ones as it's gonna be like a bunch of copy pasting. So yeah, I think as soon as we have like CI passing and some testing for that, we can try to focus to put some focus on reviewing those changes. And yeah, I'll be sharing the review Etherpad soon, so we can add those changes and mark them as a priority. These snapshot changes being up for a while, so we can get some closure for them.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Carlos.
Awesome. Any more thoughts to add, folks? Any questions to ask as well?
The only thing I guess is that bug that was fortunately discovered right after the release, and so we're not dead in the woods yet. Like if you know Ashley has a patch and we backport it, we the the bug is probably just easily closable, right? The impact of that was not visible in any of the test projects, and that was a little concerning. And I kind of don't like the way we're doing schema testing in Manila Tempest at all. And I don't know if we should probably not worry about it there and look at it only from the unit test perspective. And that's something I wanted to like ask folks what what their preference would be. I kind of added a helper in the Manila Tempest plugin to make things easier. At least, if you wanted to verify the top key, which is what this bug is about, you can do so by just specifying yet another parameter, and we can just add it to all of the client methods. So we don't run into an issue like this when the API is changing. But it's also not. I mean, it's going to be a laborious process. So I don't know if anyone has thoughts about where this should be tested.
Yeah, it's kind of a complex situation for this. I don't. Yeah, it's hard to think about something that we should be testing if it should be done with unit testing and so on. Yeah, it's good to raise the discussion.
For one, I think Ashley, when you're submitting your patch, you should also be probably looking if the unit tests are proper and why we didn't catch it there. I didn't look in the Manila repo yesterday. I was curious because I'm pretty sure we do a lot of API testing, so I was wondering why it was not caught. And it just happens that we're not looking at the top key for any API. So that's just a limitation that we have from Tempest.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look into the unit test and see what I'm missing, and I'll add that. It's a pretty important catch.
Yeah, that is something that I think too could be testing the unit test. But I mean, it's if we don't have that for the other APIs, I mean, we should be at least like now that this happened and we saw some scenarios about this. It's something that we can continue looking at the reviews and asking for the next unit test to actually check what's the key that's being tested, or trying to I don't know, this is gonna be like more complicated, but like updating the unit tests we have for the APIs. I don't see like an easy way and something that wouldn't be like too laborious to go over the unit tests for the APIs and ensuring that we are returning the right keys or adding some assert to the keys we are returning, and that the like, because we do have the documentation and some examples of in samples there of what the API should return. But I mean, as soon as we have like a bunch of unit tests already implemented, Manila-wise, it's harder to go over those and to ensure that everything is like, I mean, adding more assets and so on. So yeah, I think it's like a broader effort, and we can take a look at now we saw happening, as I mentioned, we can go and look at the new changes that are coming in and be ensuring that, but at the same time, it would be nice to prevent this at the future. But finding a way to do that, it's difficult at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose no generic answer there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's lean on the thing of being conservative, I guess. So Ashley, let's look at the unit tests, and we'll get this Tempest change merged as well. So we'll have it in both places.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome. Any more thoughts to add, folks? Okay. So I'll take that as a no. We have 5 minutes to spare. We can give back those 5 minutes up to you. Let me stop recording.